Today's big topic is going to be the current state of generative AI in tabletop role-playing games. This is obviously a big topic. It comes up in the Sly Flourish Patreon quite a bit. We talk about it on the Discord server quite a bit. A lot of different people have talked about it in a lot of different ways. There's a lot of different opinions about this. My main point up front, the main thing that I would like you to get an idea from is I really feel like the best large language model you can use to help you run your game is your own brain. I think that your own brain, fueled with excellent source material, source books, and other kinds of fiction and everything else, fueled by that, along with tools, simple tools like random generators, random tools, other ways to sort of brainstorm your work, can work better for you than working with a large language model to try to build out a campaign or a adventure or things like that. However, there are people that I talk to, there are friends of mine who use it, and they say that it's working really well for them and that they're able to get a lot out of it. So who the hell am I to tell them that they're not getting a lot out of it? If you think that you're getting a lot of value out of it, it's not up to me to convince you that you're not. You get to decide if that's there. But I will ask you two questions that I think are worth asking. One is, are you really getting out of it more than you could get by reading books, cross-referencing your books, taking notes, jotting things down, using random tables in order to shake up your brain and come up with really cool ideas on your own? And two, is it worth the cost of the world to use those large language models for that? So what are those big costs? There's a few things we need to consider about large language models and generative AI overall that the whole world is figuring out. Like, like every major government in the world is trying to figure this out. So we're not going to all figure it out here on this show. But I do think that there are things that we should really consider when we're looking at generative AI models, because these are just plain truths about this. One, large language models and generative AI are generally built on people's intellectual property, and they didn't get permission from those people, and they're not compensating those people. Whether or not it's within fair use or not, that's all kind of getting figured out. Claims, you need to be able to do that. But the reality is a lot of people had their stuff harvested by these things, didn't want that to be the case, and are not receiving compensation, even though the companies that are building these things are making billions and billions of dollars. ChatGPT, I think I read this yesterday, ChatGPT OpenAI is being valuated at $160 billion. They're seeking investors to pour money into ChatGPT. Well, guess what? They indexed my stuff and nobody came by and dropped $20 on me. Your company would be useless if you didn't have it. So obviously there's value in my stuff to you, but you're not compensating me for that value. Right? Also, by the way, I give all of my stuff away under a Creative Commons attribution license. So I make it available. All you have to do is reference me. But they can't do that because large language models can't reference stuff directly. They can't say, by the way, this came from Mike Shea at Sly Flourish at this article. They can't do that. So I'm really giving stuff away for commercial use. So you can do it and build $1 billion company, but you have to mention my work, and they can't do that. So it's built on people's intellectual property without their permission. It uses tons of power. Microsoft has just talked about firing up 3 Mile Island again because they need nuclear level power in order to fuel generative AI. A recent Washington Post article says that it uses up a bottle of water per 100 words generated from a large language model. So tons of water, tons of power getting used by generative AI, far more than the Sly Flourish random generator that is available to patrons at Sly Flourish, which uses far less energy in order to hit a random thing and get an NPC. It's giving an excuse to bosses to replace workers with crappy versions of AI to try to do the same job. There's lots to talk about this. And again, you can find links in the show notes where it talks about the fact that companies are trying to get their employees to use AI more so that they can have less employees, but the employees are not finding any actual value from the use that they're getting with this stuff. And fourth, it's filling the internet with slop. I've heard lots of people who are now going online to try to find images for their games, and they have to set the date back from 2020 and below because everything else that's coming out is just crappy generative AI art and other stuff. There is an article recently from the guy who ran a program called WordFreak, which is a word frequency application that was used for Linux that was based on human language. And he said, I'm not going to update it anymore because the internet has been filled with such generative AI crap that we can no longer trust that it's actually being generated by humans, which makes this tool not work anymore. So he's shutting down the use of the tool because the internet is so filled with generative AI stuff that you can't trust that you're actually getting anything from a human being. These are all real problems that it has that go beyond tabletop role-playing games. But I think they are all problems that we should be keeping in mind when we're looking at using generative AI for any of the stuff that we're doing. And maybe you can say, yeah, Mike, I know all four of those things are true, but I'm still going to go ahead and use it because it's useful in my game. That's fine. That's your choice. I'm not here to give you a moral lesson that, oh, you shouldn't and you're a terrible person because you generated a picture for your game on Wednesdays. But I think it's worth knowing that those things are true. And I think it's also worth asking, am I really getting value out of it considering those four things are true? That's something that I think is important. Now, the hobby itself is on different side. Chris Cox, the CEO of Hasbro, is super excited about AI. When he was at a recent Goldman Sachs thing, because that's where he hangs out, is at Goldman Sachs, he said, I play with probably 30 to 40 people regularly. By the way, that's 7 regular games. Do you have 7 regular games? I play this game all the time and I only have 3. But I guess when you're a CEO, you can have 30 to 40 different people you play with. They're probably not imaginary friends. I play with probably 30 to 40 people regularly. There's not a single person who doesn't use AI somehow for either campaign development or character development or story ideas. That's a clear signal that we need to be embracing it. The themes around using AI to enable user-generated content, using AI to streamline new player introduction, using AI for emergent storytelling, I think you're going to see that not just in our hardcore brands like D&D, but also multiple of our brands. He loves AI. He's all about the AI. Now, some people are like, well, that's just a poor CEO who's stuck in a position where he has to say the things that he's saying because he has to make his shareholders happy and he has to make the board of directors happy. And I'm sure he doesn't even know what he's really saying. Guess what? If he's saying it, why don't we believe him, right? If he's saying that he plays with 40 people who all use AI, that's pretty wild, right? He plays with 40 regular people and every one of them is using generative AI. So I had a question about that and we'll come back to that in a second. So interestingly enough, Kobold Press, Wolfgang Bauer from Kobold Press came out with the No AI pledge where he said, we don't use generative AI art. We don't use AI to generate text for our game design. And we don't believe that AI is a magical pixie dust that makes your tabletop games better. I like that quote. I thought that was a good, strong quote. So obviously, even in the RPG industry, we have one person who's like, I have 40 friends and they use AI all the time. And then we have another guy who's like, I think AI is an antithesis of the RPG hobby. At the high levels, we can't even agree. I was curious about Chris Cox's 30 to 40 imaginary friends that all use AI. And I said, I wonder how many people are using AI in general. And I can't survey the whole world, so I don't know. But I can put out a YouTube poll that reaches a lot of people. I reached about 3,700 people who answered back. So I can tell from the 3,700 surveyed GMs and players how many of them regularly use generative AI to either prep their game or as part of their gameplay. And the answer was about 3 in 10. About 3 out of 10 people were using generative AI as some part of their game. And boy, I saw a lot of divisiveness among the comments. I saw some people that said, it's really helpful to me. It helps me brainstorm. I got lots of really good ideas from this and it really kind of pushes my brain out. And I got other people that said, I don't want to have anything to do with any technology that is stealing from creators. So obviously there's a lot of difference of opinion in there. But it sure was a different story than the idea that, oh, everyone does, because I don't think everyone does. That is kind of the current state of what generative AI is, as far as I can see it. So what are my views on this? And my views are that I find for myself, and yes, I've experimented with it. I've tried it, and I didn't inhale, but I did spend some time trying to use generative AI to see what I could get. And the answer for me was not a whole lot. That it tended to drive towards the median so much that everything that came out was kind of boring. I was always fighting rats, bats, and spiders. It was always like goblins in the cave. It was kind of boring stuff. So I could push it and I could get it into areas where I want it. But what I could also do is just do that myself. So what I find is that actually reading books and cross-connecting information from books, using basic tools like search, reading websites, reading material, and building my own notes out helped me more than trying to get like AI to summarize stuff for me, and then it misses half of the stuff that was there. I also find that using random lists is a huge way to shake up our brains and give us ideas about things we can do. And the output from that doesn't need to be this super clean, human readable text. We can get 4 words out of a random generator and mix our random tables together and come up with wild ideas that actually really helps us build games that are fun for our friends. So to me, the idea of rolling on a random list multiple times or rolling on 2 different random lists and combining the results offers really tremendous value. And guess what? It doesn't use a bottle of water. Sometimes when I get really heated and I'm really excited, Michelle needs to come and dump a bottle of water on my head every time when I'm sitting there like quickly writing things up. But that's actually pretty rare. It's actually fun to do the kind of Gandalf style, going to Minas Tirith into the old libraries and blowing great piles of dust off of your books and connecting the dots. I liked doing that research. I liked when I was researching the Dragon Empire for my upcoming Kobold Press Tales of the Valiant game. It was really interesting for me to do that kind of research, and more interesting than it would be for me to feed all those PDFs into a retrieval augmented generation style large language model where it would then summarize all the information and give me that data back. Sometimes that can work, but really, I got to think, Michelle needs to be pouring water when Mike rants like this. Maybe I'm getting hot. That's why I have my bottle of water. But it takes me 1 bottle of water for like this whole show. So it's a lot less water for me to do all this talking than it is for a large language model to generate 100 words of text. I think it's really fun to do that research. And I don't think we necessarily need all those tools to try to give us like half-baked answers. What I heard was that like a good large language model filtered with the right information is about as good as a hungover intern. Do you really want a hungover intern giving you the kind of material you want? Or do you want to use your own expertise, your own knowledge, your own passion to build the kind of stuff that you want to build for your game? I argue the others. I do find generative AI and large language models useful in certain circumstances. The big one for me is I do find it useful for doing small coding projects. And I've used large language models to do small coding projects. The thing is, like, sometimes it really, those kind of generative AI gives us the feeling that it's offering better results than it really is. And I'm not just talking about like hallucinations. Like we all know that like large language models in particular have hallucination problems where they will often make up things or give you results with a high confidence that are clearly false. But it also, like, because it reads like a human being, it makes us trust it more than if it was like coming back with just 4 words coming out of a random generator. That I think there's more to it than just hallucinations being a reason why it's selling us on this. And there's more, there's something about it. It truly is magic. And when I say it's truly magic, what I mean is it's magic in the sense of magic in our real world now. It's a trick. They didn't really pull a quarter out of your ear. They were hiding it behind their fingers. They didn't really, David Blaine didn't really levitate off the ground. He was just hiding one of his feet, which he stood up on. So it's magic in the sense of misdirection and false attention and deception than it is actual magic. And I think that's something I've discovered. I've been, playing with it a lot. I've been researching and studying and reading a lot about it. And there's, that idea that it's going to keep growing and it's going to change the world, I'm not so sure. But boy, they're pouring money into it. That's the other part of it that I'm not really talking about. And I didn't mention in the kind of the big problems. But one of the big problems is that it's a huge bubble. People are pouring money into this. I saw something yesterday where it said that that ChatGPT wants to increase their prices by like 10% a year. It is at the perfect time for enshittification, where it's giving us a service that costs them way more than we're actually paying for it, so that we all get used to it and we all want to use it. And then the rug is going to get pulled out, and either we're going to pay a lot more, or we're going to be inundated with ads, or some of the material we're going to get back as advertisement based, or who knows or the whole thing could collapse, right? We don't really know. But, what I can tell you right now is we're at stage 0, which is trying to give us a service that we love. One thing that I heard that made me pause was the question of the reason we like it so much is because it's one of the few areas of the internet that isn't completely inundated with ads and other stuff yet. And because it's a clean interface where you can type a question and get an answer, and that's so much better than Google, with how enshittified Google is, so much better than most of the commercial search engines, and certainly better than a lot of the websites where you're constantly getting pestered to sign up for newsletters, or you're getting like a ad blocker warning that says, oh, we see you're using an ad blocker, you're sure you want to do it? The rest of the internet kind of sucks so bad that when we go there, it's the one island in the sea of crap. And we like it because it actually gives us an answer. for now. They are paying, again, money is pouring into it. The thing I read said that ChatGPT had a huge revenue, OpenAI had a huge revenue, but they lost $6 billion because of the cost to run this stuff. So what can you do instead? So on Monday, I have an article coming out the same week called The Best LLM for Generating Your Stuff is Your Brain. This article talks about all the things that I've been saying. In fact, I'm going to link to this article rather than linking to all the sources of stuff that I've got. But in this article, you'll find things that you can do instead of working with an LLM that can actually make your game better. And some examples are read the source books, highlight them, reference things, take notes, connect the dots, enjoy the experience of diving in. Think about your characters, think about your villains, write down secrets and clues, write down flash fiction that you can give to your players. Actually write your own flash fiction. Don't have ChatGPT whip up flash fiction. Make your own and send it out to them. It's a fun creative exercise to come up with a 100-word bit of flash fiction to show them how the world is moving around them. Think up lists of 10 things. This is my big brainstorming thing. I do this all the time. I love it. I think that it's way better than coming up with one good solution or thinking real hard to come up with one good solution is to think up lists of 10 solutions and then pick some of the best ones. And that can be NPCs, locations, monsters, quests, factions, secrets, and clues. Anything else you need for your game, come up with a list of 10. If you can, come up with a list of 20 and make it a 1d20 roll list. And now you've built your own random lists that you can use for things. Use Dyson maps. You don't need AI things to come up with maps. You can use Dyson maps. He has like 1,300 maps on his website that are available for free, written by a guy who knows how to make maps. Awesome maps, and many of them are available for commercial use. Mash together random tables, roll on multiple tables, on multiple times on the same table, mash up those results and come up with really interesting, meaningful random encounters and random ideas for your games. Build your own faction table list for your campaign. Your campaign is unique. There's unique players that are going on, unique factions at work. Make a random list of those factions and then combine that random list of factions with things like items, NPCs, quests, and locations so you can generate really unique stuff for your campaign without having to go back to a large language model and do it. As examples, I have a Forgotten Realms faction list and an Eberron faction list available on Sly Flourish. You can see those linked up there too. And then I have a whole bunch of articles, again, linked in this one article about LLMs, on other brain tricks that you can use in order to really think creatively around your game, like creative mind exercises for D&D, breaking conventional thought with random tables, how to play D&D anywhere, developing your DM brain attic, great ideas for your RPGs, good books of random tables, and random creativity in D&D. There's also other tools that you can use. The Lazy GM's resource document, a free Creative Commons released document that comes from the Lazy DM's Companion Workbook and Return of the Lazy Dungeon Master, includes lots of random tables you can use. Of course, those tables are available in the Lazy DM's Workbook and the Lazy DM's Companion. You can mix them all you want. I love Perchance. Perchance is an online tool that lets you generate your own online random generators. You can even download those generators so that you have them even if Perchance goes down. The random generator that I have as a Patreon feature, the Lazy GM's random generator, is built on Perchance. Fantastic tool, fantastic resource where you can build your own random tables and mix together your own random tables. It's great. Donjon.bin.sh is a fantastic and venerable random generator for all sorts of fantasy RPGs and specifically usable with D&D and 5e. It's fantastic. There's a lot. The art. The big question is, well, what about art, Mike? I need to generate art. There's lots of different kinds of art that you can get from actual artists on places like the stock art on DriveThruRPG, which has great art by real artists with reasonable licensing costs that you can use if you want to use it in a professional work. If you're looking for like characters or NPC portraits for your game, check out Inkwell Ideas portrait decks. Again, available in that article. You can find a link to it. Those portrait decks give you hundreds and hundreds of different character portraits that you can use for all kinds of things. It works really great. And of course, for big books of random tables, the Dread Thing Anomicon is probably my favorite giant book of random tables that you can use to build all kinds of different fantasy situations. So those are all different ways. I didn't want to just sit here and rail on generative AI and talk about how much it sucks and that you should do other things. I wanted to give you ideas that you can use. No, I just rattled off a ton of stuff. There's no way you remembered all of that. So please check out the article. I will link to it in the show notes. You can find that link and you can find a whole bunch of different resources for how to really bend your brain around this RPG, just like we've done for the past 50 years running games for our friends. And that is where I think we really get value out of this. And that's why I think the best large language model is the one between your ears, your own brain. If you like this show and you like the work that I do, the best thing you can do is subscribe to the Sly Flourish newsletter. It's absolutely free to sign up. There is a link down in the show notes. You get a free adventure generator for signing up, and you get a weekly RPG-related article, including articles like the best large language model is the one is your own brain. You also get links to all of the other work that I do across the internet are all embedded in that one article that I send out every week. You can also support me directly on Patreon. It's the best way to support the work that I do. You get direct access to lots of different tools, tips, tricks, and techniques to run your games. You also help support shows like this. And you can pick up any of my books, including Return of the Lazy Dungeon Master, The Lazy DM's Workbook, or The Lazy DM's Companion, or Forge of Foes, available on the Sly Flourish bookstore. Thank you all so much. Have a great day, and get out there and play an RPG.